All right. Good afternoon or good evening, everybody. It has been a day. That's right. Meteorologist Alex Carter with you here in the Fox 84 Digital Weather Center for another edition of Weather Aware Live. Thank you so much for joining us tonight. Obviously, a lot to talk about here in the weather world. We got a potential winter storm on the way, and the impacts, we've still yet to iron those down. We know a lot of things, but there's still a lot that we don't know as well. So again, tracking that and giving you the latest updates on kind of the trends that we're seeing, where things are headed as we head into this weekend. Now, obviously, what we're going to be watching for is potential of some wintry weather here in the CSRA. And there we go, just adjusting that just a little bit. There we are. So you can see a better view of that. And again, we're watching for what could be some freezing rain accumulation here. And with freezing rain, that's the most disruptive type of wintry weather that we can see in our area. So it just goes to show you we need to be weather aware and staying up to date with the latest. So again, if you're joining us, good evening. Meteorologist Alex Carter with you here for another edition of Weather Aware Live. Now, again, with all of the winter weather going on, let's go ahead and knock out the next couple of days. I want to show you the forecast for your Thursday and your Friday as well. Here it is for Thursday. We're going to start out near 40 degrees. We're going to see mild temperatures tomorrow, actually, and lows will be in the upper 30s, low 40s. We're going to see a few light showers, but it's not going to be anything significant. Low to mid 60s for highs with just a few light showers through the day, and there will be lots of cloud cover at that. The clouds aren't going away through the next several days. We get to Friday, a few more showers. Some spotty light rain expected in the forecast. Highs in the upper 50s and low 60s, and it's going to be off and on through the day. That front is what's going to be headed south, and that's what's going to set the stage for what is going to be a potential winter storm in parts of the two-state and perhaps even the CSRA as well. So let's get out of that, and let's focus on what you need to be weather aware about. Again, that chance of freezing rain accumulations. And I'm going to go ahead and take that off. Here's the latest one. And so it's Saturday night into Monday morning, okay? Saturday night into Monday morning. Need to be weather aware for frigid temperatures, bitter wind chill. That's going to be a given in this forecast. What's going to be possible is freezing rain accumulation that leads to travel issues and power outages. That's what we're most concerned about at this time. So if you're watching us and you've been watching the forecast, you've noticed there's multiple scenarios that are at play. Thankfully, the forecast is coming into view, and that's a good thing. We need that to be the case, and that's what we're watching out for as we head into the next few days. So again, we're going to be narrowing the forecast down, giving you the latest impacts that you could see in your particular area. Now, when it comes to ice totals, again, that's still to be determined. We're not going to show you many totals just yet, and the big reason why is we don't want you to get caught up in the totals. We want you to prepare regardless for what could be a winter storm in the CSRA. Make sure to ask your questions. If you have any questions about this forecast, this is what this is for. We're wanting you to answer, or wanting you to ask those so we can get your answers and get you what you need so you can prepare for what is potentially a winter storm in our area. So make sure that you ask those away. And again, we'll keep you up to date with the very latest on that. So let's go ahead and show you the two different scenarios, all right? So I'm going to make sure, you can see me and you can also see the graphics very well. So with this particular setup, and I'm going to go ahead and backtrack this for a second. The first scenario that could come true is going to be a system that goes further inland, a northward track with the low. We call this a warm nose, and you can actually trace the nose here with what you're seeing on this graphic. There's the nose, and it's sticking out, and it's that wedge of warm air that moves into northwest Georgia, northeast Alabama. That could greatly diminish impacts for areas even here in the CSRA. If this scenario comes true, we are still going to see impacts from a winter storm. I don't want you to get it twisted. We will still see impacts from a winter storm, whatever scenario happens here, whether it's scenario 1 or scenario 2. It's just a matter of how severe those impacts could become. That's the big piece to this. So scenario 1 is the warm nose. And in this scenario, freezing rain is still expected. That would happen Saturday night into Sunday morning. It would be a shorter period of freezing rain because, again, the warm air would move in a little bit quicker, and that would allow us to turn into a cold rain by Sunday afternoon. So a shorter period of freezing rain is going to lead to less accumulation, which in turn leads to less impacts. It's a domino effect. So that warm nose would be a good thing. Scenario number 2. This is the one that we don't want to see. This is the one that we were, especially early on this week, especially on Monday, that we were seeing concerning signs about. Even on Tuesday, we were concerned about this. This is the coastal track, and if that low moves further south, it's going to drag those freezing temperatures and trap them right over the CSRA. That would mean a much longer period of freezing rainfall, and in turn, more significant accumulations, in turn to more significant impacts. It's a domino effect, and that's what we're watching right now. Does that low go further north or further south? On top of that, this low is looking pretty weak. The central pressure with it, not very impressive with this setup. And because it's going up against a very strong area of high pressure, which one's going to win out? And right now we think the high pressure could win out, and that's why we still think a worst-case scenario cannot be ruled out for the CSRA. We could still very easily see ice accumulations up to a 1/2 inch to 3/4 of an inch. That is still a possibility. That's why we don't want you to let your guard down. We don't want to scare you, and we're not trying to have a herky-jerky forecast. We're riding in the middle lane, and once we get more data and a more confidence in the solution, then we'll start to veer into a direction and give you the updates for what we're expecting here locally in our area. So let's dive into scenario 1, which is the warm nose. And again, this is what we were just touching on. The warm nose scenario, again, keeps the warm air pushing further north, which would give us much better chances of changing over to a cold rain much faster than the other scenario. Impacts. We would still see impacts. We would still see slick roads. We would still see maybe some spotty power outages, especially north of I-20. But the low to moderate impacts is what we would be having, not the significant to extreme level impacts. That's the warm nose. That's the scenario that's possible in scenario 1 there. Now let's go to scenario 2, and this is the cold wedge. And I'm checking y'all's questions, see if y'all have any of those. Let's see, Paula, starting Saturday night into Sunday. Thank you, Kaylee, for answering that one as well. So this is scenario 2, and scenario 2 is where the low is going to follow the coast. It's going to take that coastal track. And in this scenario, high pressure to the north is going to lock things in, and that's going to lock in the below freezing temperatures. That means that the freezing rain would start much earlier. We're talking around Saturday afternoon is when it would kick up, and it would continue through at least Sunday afternoon. That's a whole 24-hour period of freezing rain. That's not what you want to see. Longer duration of freezing rain leads to more widespread impacts, such as long-lived travel issues and long-lived power outages. We're also talking about downed trees. And in this setup, with downed trees, we've already got weaker root systems because of Hurricane Helene, and we haven't had many high wind events up to this point since Helene. So we still haven't seen what a ice storm or something like that can make a true impact on in the event that we did see that. So again, 2 different scenarios, the warm nose and the cold air wedge. And right now, again, the truth usually lies somewhere in the middle in these cases. So here's what we're looking at for impacts. And again, I'm not on the screen so you can see these. These graphics are very involved, and they have a lot of information on them. So I'm letting you take that in full screen here. High impacts are still very possible along and north of I-20. I think the highest chance of seeing some higher-end impacts at this time are in Washington, Lincolnton, McCormick, Edgefield, northern Aiken County. These are areas where we could see higher ice accumulations, long-lived power outages, and widespread travel issues, including some roads that could be deemed impassable. That's what we're looking at for Saturday night through Monday morning. Okay, so that's what we're looking at there. And in this scenario where we saw the worst case, those impacts would last well into Monday, by the way. So that's still a situation we're monitoring as well. For most of the CSRA, moderate impacts are still on the table, and that's what we want to hone in on, okay? Ice accumulations, we're still expecting those. How much ice? Yet again, it remains to be seen. That's all going to be a role in this forecast, is how far the cold air dips downward and how far does it lock in. If the warm air pushes up against it and wins out, we could be moving this a little bit further to the north. But we're playing it on the safe side, playing that middle road right now. And once we get further confidence, we'll adjust this and keep you up to date. But moderate impacts, if you're in the yellow here, Augusta, Aiken, Thompson, Waynesboro, Barnwell, Louisville, Gibson, Bamberg, Allendale, Millen, Swainsboro. Ice accumulations are still expected. Spotty power outages, slick roads, and isolated down trees are possible. I'm not willing to dive on the deep end and say that we're going to see widespread down trees, power outages for a week, and all that bad stuff. And we're not going to get doom and gloom until we know that those impacts are likely. And right now we don't know that. That's why we're not going to go on that branch just yet. Earlier this week, we were showing you simply what this system is capable of at its highest, not what it's definitively going to do. So if you've seen some posts saying that we do have confidence that high impacts are possible, that's true. They are possible. And we could also see that shift, and we could see lower impacts. We're playing that middle road right now, but the bottom line is I want you to prepare as if you could see power outages and impassable roads for a couple of days' time. The further south of I-16 you go, the lower impact this is going to be. South of Emmanuel County, we're not expecting any impacts. Macon's going to be right on that borderline. So is Swainsboro. So is Savannah. And again, the further north we go, the worse those impacts could get. So again, this is very typical for our area. I do want to emphasize this. Very typical for the CSRA for us to be right on the dividing line of what could be an impactful winter storm. And we see this oftentimes with temperatures. Some of us are in the 50s. Some of us are in the upper 60s. You can get temperature spreads at 20 degrees in these type of setups. Maybe not this time. If we're all below freezing and that's locked in, we could all see big impacts. But if the warm air wins out and nudges further north, then we might not see hardly a lot of impacts at all. And the truth, again, usually lies somewhere in the middle. So important parts of this forecast. Don't want you to be scared. Just want you to be prepared. That's the number one thing that we want to emphasize here as we move along. So I'm going to show you some of these ice totals real quick, okay? Take these for a grain of salt. The Euro is the warm nose solution. Remember that when I show you these. The Euro is the warm nose, showing you the warm air winning out. The GFS has the cold air staying put. So here it is. Euro, look at that. Wouldn't this be nice? This would be a blessing, and we would really hope for that. That's the scenario we're obviously hoping for, but we're not calling for at this time. The GFS is showing a much more concerning picture, which shows you ice totals up to 1/4 of an inch to an inch area wide. The higher the totals is the further north you go. So Lincolnton, Edgefield, McCormick, Washington, these are places where we still have a degree of certainty that you're at least going to see impacts. It's pretty much a guarantee if you're north of I-20 and along Highway 378. If you're in Augusta, Aiken, Thompson, impacts are likely. And then the further south you go, the less certain that gets. But right now, most of the area needs to prepare for moderate impacts here from a potential ice storm. And again, those ice accumulations ranging anywhere from 1/10 of an inch to about 3/4 of an inch. I'm still not going to go out on the limb of saying a full-blown inch of ice. That takes a lot to do here in the Deep South. It takes a whole lot. So I'm not necessarily expecting that. Also of note, many have been asking about the snowfall potential here in the CSRA. The answer is we are not expecting any snow. It is just not happening, and unfortunately, that is the case. I'm very confident that snow is not a part of our forecast here. If that changes, I will let you know, of course, but I just don't foresee that happening at this time. And then we move forward. Let's see if I can view your questions. I'm having a little bit of a difficulty with that, so we're going to have to go back out here and see what's going on. There we go. All right, perfect. And, yep. Awesome. Okay, so getting to questions here. Thank you guys for waiting. We had a few technical difficulties on that front. Carlos, how long would it last? Couple days or a whole week? Well, the truth lies again somewhere in the middle, Carlos. We're going to see the worst of this Saturday night through Monday morning. And, Sunday ends up being warmer, then we could see some melting both Sunday afternoon and, of course, Monday afternoon. Both days, temperatures could get above freezing. So this doesn't look to be the longest duration event at this point. I think 2 to 3 days is that window where our impacts will be the highest. This doesn't look to be sticking around for maybe more than a week at the tops, and I don't think a week is going to be happening at all. This looks like still, again, moderate impacts that'll linger for 2 to 3 days. Hope, that's a great question. I wanted to answer something like that, so thank you for that question, Hope. Hope asked, when will we know which model? And that's a great question. It all depends on the track of this low. I compared it to the tropics in our 6:30 p.m. newscast, and I think that's a great way to explain this because what happens in these situations is when we talk about tropical track, we always say we don't know a confirmed track and we don't have a great idea of that track until a low has formed. A low still hasn't formed yet, by the way. A low is going to start forming on Friday. That's when certainty becomes really high. We're going to get a really good idea of this, though, starting tomorrow, how this all shakes out and how you should prepare. But again, the best way to prepare is to go ahead and get ahead of the game with just getting the basics, non-perishable foods, making sure you got some gas and all that good stuff. Again, don't over-prepare, but prepare. Make sure you just have those basics in place ahead of this. Michael, I think if we're going to see an area in the CSRA that does not get ice, it's going to be our southernmost counties. We're talking Emmanuel, Jenkins, Screven, Allendale, Bamberg. So Michael in Swainsboro still monitoring the potential to not see a lot of winter weather impacts. Swainsboro is the safest spot to be within this storm system as we see it now. So hopefully that makes you feel better. But again, still not ruling out ice accumulations in Swainsboro. Still a game of wait and see, but if we're going to see cold rain, it's going to happen there in your area. Dwayne, that's another great question, man. Thank you for asking. Do we expect high wind? We are expecting gusts up to 20 to 25 miles an hour potentially. That's going to be coming in Monday morning. I do expect some gusty winds Monday morning. I do expect the winds to be somewhat breezy on Sunday as well because we're going to be between this pressure gradient, and those gradient winds will kick up a little bit. But I don't think the wind gusts will be extremely high on Sunday. I think the gustier winds up to 25 miles an hour would happen on Monday morning, which with ice accumulations, Dwayne, as you know, that could be some trouble. So hopefully the perfect storm does not happen. Again, a lot would have to happen just perfectly for us to get a extreme winter storm and ice storm in our area. Lakel, great question. What is the coldest temp that we are going to face in the near term? Lakel, I think that's actually going to be more or less on Tuesday morning. We're expecting lows in the 10s, anywhere from 15 to 20 degrees on Tuesday morning. So Monday night into Tuesday morning, even after the storm, believe it or not, is actually when the coldest weather is going to be. That's the pipe bursting cold, and that's something that might get lost in all this is what happens after the actual precipitation is done. We're still going to have a cold morning coming in on Tuesday. Lakel. Let's see. Looking at your questions here. Amy, thanks for joining in. Amy, good evening. Amy Duckett, who is a weather watcher and a very much weather enthusiast. This is a good question here. She says, is King Euro out to lunch or is the GFS? That's the $1 million question right now, okay? And, what we tend to look at is what we call the ensembles. And everybody, if you're wondering what the ensembles are, it's a collection of all the models that we have, and it's putting them together for that most likely scenario. And right now, the truth lies somewhere in the middle. The Euro wants to bring us a cold rain early with minimal ice totals, which you've seen on our latest map here. And then the GFS wants to give us a full-blown day after tomorrow scene, if you will. Not to hype. It's more of a joke than anything at this point. The day after tomorrow type of scene. And really, the truth be told, I think we could see anywhere from 1/10 of an inch to 1/2 an inch of ice. I think that is where we're kind of leaning towards at the moment. Again, ice totals, we will confirm those down the road. But if I had to put my guts guess on it, 1/2 an inch or 1/10 of an inch to 1/2 an inch, with the 1/2 an inch totals being north of I-20, 1/4 of an inch for I-20, the Augusta Metro, and 1/10 of an inch south of I-20. And if you're in Swainsboro, it might not be much at all. Let's see. Kenneth, thank you for the kind words, man. I appreciate it. And Hannah, let's go to your question here. Will roads be icy on Tuesday morning? More than likely, no. I think I lean towards the no side of that. I think we could have a few spots of black ice on Tuesday morning, but right now we're trending more towards the roads being hazardous on Sunday and on Monday. And let's see. Jenny, Jenny, especially up in Saluda County where you're at, I definitely think you got to watch this a lot closer. The further north you go, which is Saluda County, the higher the impacts will likely be. So I definitely think that we are looking at much more impacts in Elbert County, near Abbeville, closer to Saluda County, Lexington County, and up towards the upstate. But for us, I do think impacts are definitely possible here. Mark, a good question. Just seeing yours now. You're asking, you've had the question asked if any sleet will be involved, and you've been asked that at school. Mark, I don't think that sleet's going to be heavily involved in this. If we were to see a precipitation type other than rain and freezing rain, it would be sleet, but that's not my expectation right now. But remember, sleet does accumulate on the roads, so that would be a problem. But the good news is it doesn't accumulate as frequently on power lines and on trees because it's already a hard pellet as it is falling, and so it's going to bounce off of things a little bit better. Ashley, yeah, I think, that hyperbole has really gone around a lot. A lot of people know 2014 around here good and well. We all know that we saw ice totals between a half an inch and an inch in most places. I don't want to get to that point, okay? I don't want to say it's 2014 all over again. It takes a very, very lot. It takes the perfect storm for it to get to 2014 level. So 2014, again, it takes a lot. It'd be the perfect storm to have to do that. And right now, I don't think that is the case. But I do think we see impacts in the CSRA that you still need to be weather aware for. Let's see. Trying to read that comment. Blake says your earlier post indicated there were two likely scenarios, one where there's minor effects and one where there's more severe effects. And I'm going to try to see if I can look at this because your comment just kind of looked out, and there we go. Let's see. There we go. Okay. Which one would you lean towards based on the data you have now and expertise? That's a great question, Blake. So, if we had to pick and choose, right? If we had to pick and, the odds are in our favor, hopefully, here's what I'm saying. I think we're going to see ice. I think we're going to see anywhere from 1/10 of an inch in our southernmost counties to 1/2 an inch north of I-20, up near Lincolnton, Washington, and McCormick. So I would say that we are going to see up to 1/4 of an inch in the Augusta Metro, and I do think that that's going to start forming Saturday evening is when the roads start to go downhill. We're going to go to Sunday morning, and the roads are going to be slippery, and nobody needs to get out Sunday morning. And then we're going to have temperatures that stay below freezing for much of the day. We'll see a brief melting period, and then it's all going to refreeze. So we're still going to have travel issues Sunday morning and Monday morning, and then we're going to start to melt out of it on Monday, and whatever little is left on Tuesday morning is just a few areas of black ice. So Sunday and Monday, the two hazard days for our area. That's what we're expecting right now, and that would be my gut feeling if I had to go with it, Blake. And I hope that helps. If it didn't answer it, please let me know, and we can get into better detail on that. Jenny, thank you for that. Just joining the Harlem-Appling area. Again, I think Harlem and Appling are going to be right on that cutting-edge line. And if you're just joining us, let me give you a view of kind of what we're expecting right now when it comes to impacts. So the highest impacts will be possible near Highway 378, points to the north. For the Augusta Metro and most of the CSRA, moderate impacts are very much expected right now. Ice accumulations will lead to slick roads, spotty power outages, and isolated down trees. Right now, I don't see enough assurance in the model guidance to say that we are going to see widespread down trees like Helene or 2014. I just don't see that right now. Again, this is going to be an evolving forecast. This is why you don't just get the information today. You're going to get it tomorrow. You're going to get it Friday. You're even going to get it Saturday out ahead of this thing before it really settles in. So that's why we're going to be keeping you up to date with all the latest information as this forecast evolves. It's very tricky. Weather is not an exact science. I can promise you that. I know that some people want it to be. I can actually see that here in the comments a little bit with some of the skepticism. And that's okay. I totally get it. That's the thing. That's our job, is to get it right and to let you guys know what to expect. We're trying to prepare you for scenarios, multiple scenarios right now, because we want you to be ready for anything and everything. But the bottom line is, expect some ice accumulations and expect Sunday and Monday to be days where travel is hazardous and we could have some spotty power outages. That's what I would prepare for right now. And it's going to go downhill. Conditions are going to go downhill Saturday evening. So still looking at your questions. And again, thank you guys so much for asking these. I'm going to go ahead and swap over to our other Facebook page. after one last question, because Blake, I think you asked that really good question to start, and that's a good follow-up there. Blake asked, how drastic could this forecast change this far ahead? I do think even 4 days ahead, I think we still could see some big changes. And again, the truth lies somewhere in the middle. We're talking about scenario one where we don't see hardly anything, and then we see the GFS, which is putting out the day after tomorrow scenes all across Georgia and South Carolina. And the truth be told is it's going to wobble back and forth, but we get the general idea. So let's go ahead and start preparing for those ice accumulations and, again, potential for that chance of some slippery roads and some power outages. I appreciate that, Glennie. And Tiffany, that's a good point. She says, I know you're not a fortune teller, but it sounds like Monday there might not be school and work in most areas of the CSRA. Well, there will be some extreme cold. Monday night is when we get temperatures in the 10s, and that's the pipe bursting cold, by the way. When it comes to Sunday night, I do think that we could still see some slick roadways. So Monday we could get off to a delayed start. We could have school cancellations. I think that that's a real possibility, Tiffany. So I don't want you to and Mark, yes, most likely no school. Again, I don't make those decisions. I'm not included on those decisions. I want to make that abundantly clear, but I do want to let y'all know that is a possibility if you have kids and you're looking to see whether they will be in school or whether they won't be. I think that's possible. But if you're planning a trip or something to get out of Dodge here, go down to the Sunshine State, might not be the worst idea if you're able to do it. But again, I do think that this is not going to be, right now it doesn't look to be 2014, okay? I don't want anybody to get that in their head. And we're not trying to fear monger here. We're not trying to scare. We're trying to just inform and keep you guys up to date. Let's go ahead and switch over to the pages. And I'm going to go ahead and swap over to these viewers here on our other Facebook page that we're streaming on. So if you're just joining us, this is an edition of Weather Aware Live, and I'm going to go ahead and put this up on the screen here. Want to show y'all what this is about. And again, Weather Aware Live is a conversation sitting. So if you're just joining this for the first time, I get it. Usually you need this for bigger weather events like this one that are coming up. If you just want to get the day-to-day discussion, we don't necessarily do that here. We talk more about what's next, what's the next big thing in the forecast. And we've been doing this since the summer, and it's been great. We've been able to answer your questions. You get a more sit-down, casual look at the forecast than just the broad, generalized 3-minute look that we can give you on TV. And so this is your chance to ask questions and get those answered, and hopefully that's what you've been able to do tonight. And that's what we're doing here on Weather Aware Live this evening. So lots of questions here. Angelia, thank you for that. And Angelia asked what we can expect for Barnwell. Barnwell is going to be on the southern end of this, okay? The further south you go, generally speaking, we think that we will see less impacts than areas north of I-20. But I do think some ice accumulation, Angelia, is possible in Barnwell. It's possible there. So I don't want you to be caught off guard. And I think roads could be slick on Sunday morning, and I think they could be slick on Monday as well. Samantha, where does Edgefield fall? Edgefield is going to be on the northern end of this, so that's where impacts are a little bit more likely. So I do think ice accumulation, very possible in Edgefield, slick roads, power outages, it's possible. Again, we can't rule that out just yet. And again, travel will be hindered at least Sunday and Monday is what it's looking like. Let's see, Wyman Roberts, Jefferson County. Thank you for that. Jefferson County. And we got a lot of people on our Fox page asking about the specific locations. So let me go ahead and pop this graphic up. So if I can't answer your question, if I don't see it right off, you can get to it a little bit more. And I'm taking this full screen, by the way. So Jefferson County, I think ice accumulations are possible Saturday night through Sunday, leading to travel issues Sunday into Monday. Power outages can't be ruled out. Isolated down trees can't be ruled out. Again, if the Euro wins out, we will be adjusting this in a major way if we start to get more confidence in that direction. If it doesn't win out, then we're looking at impacts, and we're looking at a lot of them. And we want you to be prepared for those in the event that we do see some ice that does coat the ground and coat the trees and everything else here. Let's go to our social channels. There we go. Brian Weathersby, thank you for that, Brian. Sorry if you're still if you're still here. Thank you for that, and I apologize if I just now saw this. Brian asked, "Are we still possibly looking at any wintry precipitation on Tuesday morning?" That is highly unlikely. I do not see that happening, Brian. All this is probably going to end by no later than Monday morning. Past Monday morning, I think a lot of this is out of the way. David, if you're in Thompson, I think Thompson sees some ice accumulation. Yep, and black ice lasting a couple days. I think that's a real thing. Christopher, we appreciate that, and I totally get it. A lot of people have storm anxiety after Helene. I think that's the number one reason why we don't like to hype anything up. We want to let you know that the potential for this event is looking high, but not necessarily guaranteed. And again, we are expecting ice accumulation. It's just a matter of how much and how long does that stick around. That's going to be the big piece to the forecast here. So I'm leaving this up on full screen so you can see that. So if I can't get to your question again, you can see that and find that on the map. I'm about to move to some different things that we look at, and I'm about to dive into the Futurecast model. So I'm going to put that up on the screen for just a little bit longer, and then we'll go ahead and get started with a little bit more of the in-depth breakdown here. Okay, so we're going to show you this graphic, and this kind of paints the picture of what ice can do, the power of ice. It's actually more dangerous than a snowstorm in a lot of cases, just because of the impacts to power lines and trees. So at 1/4 of an inch of ice, you can still see a lot of branches falling from these bigger trees. And some of these branches are heavier branches, by the way, so it's not just the weak ones. Minor stress is put on power lines, so this is where we talk about the isolated power outages, not necessarily a widespread type of ordeal. And obviously, we'll get slippery roads in the event of 1/4 of an inch of ice. You get to 1/2 an inch to 3/4 of an inch, and this is where we up the game a little bit. This is where you really got to start thinking about tree damage, lots of branches going down, heavy stress on the power grid, so widespread power outages are possible in that case, and many roads start to become impassable in this scenario. And anything above 1/4 of an inch is where we really start to see those generational ice storms. Again, I think the threshold of 0.75 is still rather unlikely at this time. I think we'll fall in the family of 1/10 to 1/2 of an inch of ice. I think that's what we're looking at right now. We could up that total in the days ahead. Don't get your guard down just because we're talking about exact totals, because I don't want you to get a concrete total in your head at this point. So what you can do to prepare, again, just the simple things, the non-perishable foods, water, extra meds, making sure you have warm clothing, having a generator ready, having a flashlight and extra batteries, and filling up on gas. Those are all big things that you can do. And, of course, a portable phone charger, because you can tune in here. We're going to be covering the storm all the way through it on Weather Aware Live, not just cutting into Fox 54 on programming, not just there, but we're also going to be here on the digital front on Facebook and YouTube. And this is where you can really get a good idea of if the power did go out, here's your alternative source where you're watching right now. So make sure to come back here for updates, and especially during as the winter storm tries to roll through, we're going to have exactly what's happening right there, right then. And so you'll want to be here for those updates. So that's the latest from the Fox 54 Digital Weather Center. And if you're just joining us new to Weather Aware Live for the first time, again, this is a more casual setting where we look at your questions, we answer them, and we kind of go through the basics. And some of these questions are repeats. So if you didn't get your question answered, it was likely answered at some point down the road in this broadcast here on Facebook and YouTube. Very important that you go to that and you can watch that back and get your questions answered. And we'll have more updates tonight on Fox 54 News at 10 and Fox 54 News at 11. So, again, thank you guys for joining us. Thank you for your trust, and thank you for understanding that this forecast is an evolving one, and it's not always a clear picture until down the line. But regardless, we're going to keep you up to date, and we'll get you the answers that you're looking for, especially as we get some of this high-resolution data coming in. That's a big note, by the way. The high-res data is coming in. It is coming in very shortly, here just about 9 o'clock to 9:15. We're going to collect that data, show you what we're expecting. It goes out until 8 p.m. Saturday. we're going to get a really good pulse on what the in-house model is starting to show, and that'll help us really start to fine-tune things going into Thursday. So that's the latest from the Fox 34 Digital Weather Center. Again, any questions that you might still have, put them in the comments. Look back in this video, and hopefully one of those questions are ones that I will have answered them for you as well. Stay safe. Again, stay weather aware. We're going to have lots more on this coming up on Fox 34 News tonight at 10 and 11. We hope you join us then. Stay safe and have a great rest of the week. Lots of updates to come.